Okay, it must be true and evidenced.
And there's a mic here, so if you have a question, come and bring it to you.
Yeah, this is the session where we're all exhausted and our voices like running out, and we don't have the energy. And I said to somebody before, so a couple of minutes, for those of us who work by our own all day, every day, and the only people we speak to is a customer on the phone, conferences are exhausting. Because the reason we come is to make connections with people and have conversations, but it is actually exhausting for people who don't do that all day, every day, and who are introverts as well. And then we're concentrating in a different kind of way. When we do FileMaker programming, we're in the zone and we're writing code. This is a different type of concentration because we want to learn. So. Wow. Oh, I'm super impressed that the room is filling up. I do thank you for taking the time to come to the last session, one of the last sessions. I still haven't worked out how to deal with conference FOMO. You know. Oh, batteries are low. I'll stop talking. Perfect. Thank you, Bill. So I've reached the stage of life where I have a choice between reading my screen and seeing you. I've chosen to see my screen. That's not remotely personal. And because I'm like, there's a couple of us here that are quite tall, and I can't do the presentation standing up because there isn't a box for me to lift this on. So I'm sitting down, but that's not for any other reason. So it's 15:15, so we are going to start, obviously, the last session. Thank you ever so much for coming. I'm glad you've kind of got to this point where you still want to go to a session. Today's very much a kind of workshop session. We're going to flick between a few things. Obviously, there are some slides that are there. They'll be updated with some of the content that's in here because I wasn't prepared to give it all away up front. We are going to talk about OData, which is my favourite topic, and I've been speaking about it extensively for 5 years, which is great. It's given me a career at conferences. I'm John Renfrew. I am, if you don't know me, I'm from the UK, partner, Claris partner over there. In the Claris community, I'm technically an MVP, very American term, but that means very little. It just means we get to feed things directly into Claris that we're seeing in the community, and we get a little bit of pre-knowledge about things. And as I said, this is my favourite FileMaker topic. And I started by going, here's the presentation that we should give this year. Everybody's run away with the idea that the word deprecated, as applied to the data API, means it's dead and it's going away. That's not technically true, and it's not going to happen. The XML gateway still exists, it still works, it's never going to get any development on it. That's where the data API is going. It's going to still work. There are known issues with it for performance. Talk to Johan, he's managed to kill servers by doing some very bad things. It's just not getting more development. And the reason is it's a very FileMaker-y thing. The introduction of OData has been touted as the future. Now, you've seen already during the conference another place where OData is going to be used, and that's under the hood in the MCP server, that the definition is going to be an OData query, which means that if you've learnt OData, it's just a new language. it means you can read what that says, even if you're not interacting with it or don't know kind of what to do. And I wanted to kind of go, so if that's true, what are the issues that we have? How do we change the code that we're doing? How do we measure things like performance, and what can help us? And that's now going to be the last slide, if we have time to really discuss that. And the reason is, I've got some brand new things to show you. At least 3 of the things I'm going to show you today have never been presented before, and at least one of them is a world secret, because it's only just come out this week. You are the first people to see some of this stuff. So here's a reason why you're going to be happy to have come today. So, what is the best tool for you to view your OData queries? And it is a browser. It's nothing in FileMaker, it's a browser. For basic queries that don't include headers, because you can't put those in the URL string. Obviously, if you haven't, or you really quick recap, you point to your data, HTTPS, your server, FMI OData, there's a typo that I'll fix, v4 / your file. You can take that, put it into a browser, and you can see something. Now, if the file does not have an open account, you'll need to log in the browser to do that. I think that's perfectly reasonable. And the first thing that you're going to see is some metadata. So we're going to flick between bits of software. Not that window, but this one. So literally, let me zoom in a tiny bit. So the URL is some server, FMI OData v4, some file, / $metadata. Meta is stuff about your file. OData, the difference with OData is it's self-declaring. It's a bit like me giving you a business card. Here's my email address, here's my phone number, here's my address, here's whatever else. I have declared to you how you can communicate with me. OData does that in a computer way. So one of the big things about OData is it's not about what we are doing as FileMaker developers with it. It's really helpful for us. It's about what people like web developers can do with OData to communicate with our FileMaker as a data source. So we have made FileMaker data openly accessible to people who know this language. Okay? The browser knows this language, how to render it. Tells me what version I'm currently running, what the server is, and some information about what I'm seeing. So in this file, at the top, we'll just see here, there's a table called clients, and there's a set of fields. We'll look at what some of that other information means in a moment. When you do this in a browser, it will automatically format this as HTML. But you can modify this to say, I'd like to see that as JSON, please. Thank you very much. And there may be some reasons for doing that. There may also be some reasons for saying, can I view it as XML, please? I'm nowhere near FileMaker. I'm just using a browser as my tool. This view is useful because right at the bottom of this list, there are some helpful pieces of information. It's the only place you can see them. This says it's OData 4.1 and it's intermediate compliant. And these things are supported. And these words, starts with 2 upper, 2 lower, are supported. So FileMaker is declaring to the outside world this is what's supported. SAP runs on OData, but it's version 2. Everything to do with Microsoft's platform runs on OData, but it's version 3. Okay? Each version has its own set of things it can do, so we're declaring to the world, this is what we can do. Okay? So we've just done that through the browser. I'll just put the format back, because we're going to look at 2 pieces of information that have only been in this endpoint from about 6 months ago, the last iteration of version 2024, 21, is the introduction of, we are going to talk about this after the word clients. There's a clients table, And the ID of that is something that's an FMTID followed by a number. And you'll now see that under the list of fields, under each field name, is an FMFID. Okay, just log that away for a second. So, you know that you can query the internal FileMaker tables using SQL. You can also do that here in this browser. So I've changed the URL to be /FileMaker_tables. That is the returned value of what is in the FileMaker tables in that file. There's the list of tables. Next to them is the table ID, which is the numeric part of the FMTID, and that gives me a bit of information about what the base table name is for it, which is kind of interesting because OData works on table occurrences. This is the only place where you can go, what base table is that? There's a similar version of this where I changed the end to be FileMaker_fields. FileMaker with a lowercase m in the middle. And here we have all of the fields that are in the file. And the field ID is something that we can already get back. It's a numeric number every time you add a field to a table. Starts at 1 and just builds up. Okay? So we've got two pieces of information that we can get back. Again, I might have logged in to do this before the demo, but it's just in a browser. It's giving me a load of information. So you don't need a FileMaker client to be able to do this. If you have anything that can get to that URL, it can parse that data and work out what's going on. Yeah? Web code that you have with your little magic people who do things for you. So we can learn about the server. We can learn about the tables. In OData language, they're called entity sets. If you read documentation from anywhere else, it's an entity set. And the fields are called record sets. In the metadata, I didn't dwell on it. I'll show it you at the end if we have a bit of time. There are columns in the metadata which contain these abbreviations. Is it auto-generated? Is it indexed? Is it a global field? Is it a calculation? Is it read-only? Okay, so it's not just skinny metadata. We're getting useful stuff. So this is what we can see. So that'll be in the notes, so you can just review it. Default value. So clearly the created time has got an auto-enter created timestamp on it. It's just like reading how your SQL is set up. So the FMFID and FMTID are immutable references to the tables and the fields in the file. When you rename a table or a field in your file, that will not change. So we've understood for a very long time, you can call a field anything and anything stupid if you want to, and FileMaker doesn't use that name internally. We know it has this internal ID, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it uses that internally. So we can rename fields on the fly. Can't do that in SQL. You have to do a whole alter table stuff. The really interesting thing for you now is those can be used in your OData queries in replace of the word that you have called the table or the field. Okay? Not quite so readable. There may be a good reason for that. Nobody else knows what you're doing because they need to have a bit of knowledge to work out what you're doing. Some of the calls that you make in OData are logs in the OData log on your server. This obscures that one step further. So if somebody else can get to the logs, they also don't know what you're doing. If your field name is called grid, then that is a lot more characters, and we're sensitive to how much we can get in the URL string. But it may be shorter than your field name. What's the really big prize here? It survives renaming. It survives renaming. And I think I will just demo all of that stuff for you, okay? Because then you'll believe me, not just go, John said, okay? So the FMTID goes into the URL, the FMFID goes where you'd put field names. Now, I have always said previously that needs to be escaped when it's the field ID. That's now no longer true since the most recent FileMaker Server update. You don't need to escape it, and I will show you it working. You have to be careful about the version of FileMaker OData that you're using to know if you need to do that. If you don't need to do it, that's something for you to be in control of. So let's escape from that. Let's go, it's taking a while. Let's go into Postman, shall we? Do I need to zoom in? Probably. Excuse me a second. So here's a query to a file with a table call created, and I'm filtering it by the row ID. Okay, so capital row ID is the equivalent of get record ID. It's that unique row ID, okay? So I use that a lot in queries because it means I don't have to kind of worry about some other things. Let's see if the magic works. There we go. There's a record come back. And it's told me everything because I asked it to give me everything. So there you go, what you'd expect. A bunch of field names. The row ID is 7. The row mod ID, which is the modification count, in this case 27, it's got a name, a surname, a quantity, okay? So let me skinny that down by saying I want to just have the name and the surname. Right, here's a problem, because between the first query, where I said, just give me everything, I can now see that somebody renamed the field name underscore first. So this query now breaks, because I was asking it for a field called name, and it's going, oh, field called name doesn't exist. Okay? If I have changed that instead to be, let me do this, where I'm using the table ID, I'm going to get the same thing. Name doesn't exist in that file. But when I have said I want the field with this field ID and the field with that ID, we are going to expect it to work, aren't we? Bingo. Okay? So I deliberately broke it by renaming the field to show that this works. Now I don't care about what it was called because I've said I want a field with that FMFID. You do get back here, in the context, you get back the field names in the order that you asked the query to run them in. So you could technically parse that to go, okay, that thing is this. So I know that the first thing there, ending 398, is the first name because it's name underscore first. So I do have some kind of reference between the two. But this URL is completely obscured. Okay. Do we think that's like cool? Yeah, I mean, I do. I think we're going to talk about, I think there are some genuine kind of use cases for this. Let's go into there. I need to bat on because I've got so much to say. What you get back normally, if you do a query, is the field name and the value. Right, I just showed you that I was getting back something else. How was I doing that? There is a header that you can put in the request, prefer FMOData entity-IDs. Okay? So let me go back into Postman and show that. So in the headers here, I have this turned on, and it's giving me back this data. If I turn that header off and run the query again, it's going to give it me back as field names. Okay? So I can run the query with the FMF and FMT IDs, but I can get back field names. Now that depends on how you want to use it after you've kind of done it. Okay? But this prefer header will turn those field names in the result body back to FMF IDs. Okay? Happy with that? Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for paying attention. So the next question is going to be, how can you convert from one to the other? From the TID to the name, to the FID to the name, or the other way around. How can you convert them? What do we already have in FileMaker? A function, table IDs and field IDs. Table IDs you can have with an empty parameter because it's in this file, and it will give you back the list of numbers that I showed you in the metadata, which is like 7 digits long. Field IDs needs a layout to work off. You can go and read, if you haven't already got it bookmarked, Andrew Duncan's amazing article about querying using Execute SQL. Those tables that I also showed you in the metadata, the FileMaker fields and FileMaker tables. Or you've got it in the metadata. So we've got some way of getting that information kind of already, but it's used in a slightly different way in OData. We've seen that in a browser. So, however, the FMFID didn't look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the question is, how am I making that happen? Okay. Sensible head on for a moment, because we're going to do some maths. It's maths, not math. It's bit shift mathematics. You left shift the field ID number by 32 bits. Technically, you multiply it by 2 to the power of 32, which is 429,000 million. So you take that, you multiply it by a number, that's the maximum 32-bit number, so it would move it that far with a load of zeros after it. And you fill the zeros by adding the table ID to it. Okay? So the first field gives you this number, 4294, blah, blah, blah. The table ID, which you can get back, is that number. Move that by 32 bits, add that number to the end. The FMID is that calculated number at the bottom. Okay? You don't need to know much about that. We can go back. If we know what the table ID is, because we know we can get that table ID really quite simply, you take that off the number and divide it by 2 to the power of 32 to go back, to go, oh, that's field 1 or field 2. So we can do that maths, and you could spend all of your life building the calculation to do that, and then phone me up and go, John, it doesn't quite work. Or launched immediately, this is finished, because it's perfect for custom function world. I have written for you the custom functions that you need. It's currently live on GitHub. That's my GitHub address. There are 3 custom functions, one which will convert the field ID to the table ID and go backwards. Okay. So GitHub/RW2359, start there. That's this. There's a sample file and the custom functions. It's proper on GitHub if you want to raise issues with it. It's been bashed by a few people. Please go and download it, play with it to your heart's content. So let me really quick. So the demo file. Let me check. I think I have that open. So this is the demo file. Again, let me zoom in. The yellow, sorry, fat fingers. The yellow box is the table ID. It's in a header. It's a layout calculation with that on. Those 3 things are layout calculations, calculating the field IDs of those 4 fields that are on the table. Okay? Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Go and use it, play with it, talk to me about it if you kind of need to. Let's bat on. So, when you start a brand new file, the first table occurrence appears to have a table ID of 1,056,089. It always appears to be that. I have no idea where that comes from because it's nothing to do with the power of 2. It's just weird. And every new field you add starts from 1. Okay? So you're going to end up with some... There's a pattern to how this is going to be created. But obviously, a field ID which has 1, but in this table, will end up with a different FMFID because the table ID is different. It may only be different by 1, but you can't possibly end up with FMFIDs that are identical in the same file. You can across files, but you're not ever usually doing, you can't do an OData query across 2 files. It's contained in the file. So that takes that issue away. Number 2. Well, I don't know, number whatever. That was a new thing, by the way. I said, your browser is a brilliant way to view your OData. Maybe 1 or 2 of you have seen this. Another really good way to view your OData is in Excel. Okay? This is on a Mac. This didn't used to work, but it now does. Since, I don't know, some while ago. It was released in 2021 to Office 365 subscribers, but it now works for everybody if you have Excel. Get Data button that's on the data, Here, click the data thing at the top. Top left, button, Get Data. What's in the middle of that? OData. What do you think I'm now about to do for you? I'm going to have to hope that I haven't got this anywhere easy to copy and paste. So my apologies. I'm going to have to type this in. Tell me if I'm doing anything wrong.
Isn't there a postman?
Okay? No, different file. This is just so I can demonstrate something later. Okay, so there's my file. Tell you what, if I made this work properly, that'd be useful. I think that'll work. I've got a drop down for authentication. We know OData loves basic auth, so I'm hopefully going to go put in my auth. I'm going to watch the left-hand column. Yeah, that's not going to work. Why is that?
Is it the colon after HTTPS? Sorry, is it?
Let me copy this out of
It's okay.
Postman for a second. I'll try and make that work.
There was a colon.
That's a different file. Let me just copy. That's a different file. It's also a different server. Sorry about that. But it just proves it's live.
Maybe we need to put back the colon. I thought it was maybe a semicolon or something.
Yes.
After HTTPS. Because now there's none.
Okay. Basic. It's me. Please let this work. Why to fnsdata.co.uk. That's really irritating. The OData request, the remote server request, so that's not implemented. I'm going to just, sorry, because I want you to see this working. It is // Talk among yourselves for a second. FMI OData v4 OData test. Add some auth. Well, that's really, 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 really irritating.
501,
501, it means I can't find it. Yeah, of course it is, Steve. Thank you. Let me do that and copy and paste that into there. If not, we'll come back to it. Because when it works, it's magic. There you go. So, Excel reads the metadata, self-declared, and says, hey, you've got these tables here. Okay. There are some circumstances, and it's to do with there are some issues with value lists which may cause this to break. Excel is really strict on how your metadata looks. If it doesn't work, don't blame me. I'm showing you that it does work. Okay, so let me go to the created table. So I pick a table, and I'm getting at that doesn't work properly, and that's an Excel thing, okay? Which is why I needed to work it to make it work on a file where it was working. So I'll come back to it, I'll show you it working. Basically, you go, here's an OData query, you end up with the data, you can filter the data, bingo, it ends up in Excel. It's live, so that if I change the data on FileMaker and somebody refreshes the data with the Excel spreadsheet, so it deals with the issue of sending 17 versions around the office. You just send one and you click refresh.
So cool.
Thank you. I'd love to show it you, but I want to bat on and we'll come back to it and see if I can actually kind of make it work. But thank you. I didn't save the demo one that I did before to just show you it working because I wanted to show it actually working. But Excel is, and so you get, when it turns up, it's got the filters on, it's coloured, it's got all of that stuff done for you, and just go, there you go. If you put a filter at the root end before you make the Excel spreadsheet, it will only show you the number of fields that you have determined, but you can get back in and alter that live, so somebody could go back and do a different query. Okay. So, next new thing. Counting down, 20 minutes left. Blimey. Apply and aggregate, which again is in the new version, most latest version of Server. So you can now do mathematics with your data in the OData query and have it returned to you. So you can say, I'd like this with something, these kind of words. I'd like this field with max as this, and that will go, here's the query, get the biggest one of those and return it as this thing. Despite the fact that it says it should and other documentation will read, $count doesn't work. You can't return $count as something. It's documented on the internet, so if you use ChatGPT to write this stuff, that just doesn't work. But multiple predicates are supported. So I was going to be brave and write a query live, if I can do it. So, oh, it's all huge now.
Maybe close the snippets at the right.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, create a new request. Let me show you the FileMaker file first. So close that one. So this is that's not what we're showing. This is a demo file I was trying to get into before on that server. Don't know why it wasn't working. Well, this should work. So I just created a bunch of records, and I've got a quantity field in there. Okay, fine with that. So we're going to go. there. I'm going to go to there, but I'm going to not do that and go into / created. Okay, and I might need to put my, oh, there we go. I need to turn that header off. So we're going to get to see what we really want to see. A bunch of records, and it has got in here this field called quantity. Okay. So the way I'm going to build this query is I'm going to go, okay, and apply equals. Just let me check I'm going to write the right thing. That was all, yeah. Equals $aggregate. I want the quantity. Sorry. With max as, I don't know, anything. Does that work without a single bracket? Okay. So I'm applying something. What I'm applying is a thing called an aggregate. And what I'm saying is I want that quantity field, but I want the maximum in that quantity field returned to me as QE. I'm just showing you it works. You're going to need to go and start experimenting. So let's just really quickly go with min. So what's the smallest value? 100. Okay. So it's doing the maths on the fly. You don't have to bring the data back and then pass it in the JSON to create the min and max. Let's show you something that doesn't work. Count. No. If you get that back, it's really unhelpful, but it means that that doesn't work, basically. And the reason is that what I can do instead is count distinct. And I've got 11 distinct values. That's not the same as I've got 11 values altogether. If I add count is true on the end, again, typo, I will get here the at count. There are 17 records, but there are 11 distinct values. Okay. How can I get back the 17 without... Those of you who've seen previous presentations, if I put a filter on this, it will change what that count is doing. How can I get back how many there are without adding the count? I could instead of, because I just want to count the distinct values, something that is unique between all records is the field row ID. So I say, how many distinct row IDs are there? There are 17, because there are 17, and the count is proving that's true. Okay, so there's a little trick. If you count distinct row ID, that'll say how many there are. You can, let's bat on, you can put multiple things in here separated by a comma. So I can say, how many are there? Comma, quantity with max as QE. And that's going to give me back two things. One is, oh, I've called them both QE. That's idiotic. It's allowed me to do that. Let's go, hey, that's a daft idea, but it's done what I asked it to do. There you go. QC is 17. That's the count of the row IDs, and that's the maximum value. Okay, so that's how they work. Okay, it's kind of new. There's very little documentation. There's almost no help in FileMaker. I'm showing it to you to go, it works. Now go and start playing with it. If you want to talk to me about it, then obviously you know where I live.
It's kind of freaky that it was able to allegedly
Yes.
Which clearly indicates that the OData API is not doing any JSON validation, and it's not actually generating it as JSON, but as a string.
Correct.
Which is kind of freaky.
Yeah, yeah.
Because why
It's been reported.
that shouldn't happen.
But we've got something additional here. As you can see, we've got EDM. That means entity data model dot, and it's a decimal field. So if it was a string that was returning, it would say string there. So it's not just returning the raw data; it's giving me a bit of extra, just so you can, when you play with it at home, you know what you're looking for. Let me skip that for a second. So beware of your versions. Okay. I've been doing some work in the last few days where I work with students. I wanted to go, hey, I want to filter this where this person's ID is this. But what I wanted to get back was the set of courses. So in that apply, you can also do a group by. It works like an execute SQL. If you want to refer to anything because you want it back in the select later, it has to be in the group by. Okay. And then we just shown aggregate. The thing with top and count is depending on what you ask it for, depends on what the count gives you back. The documentation that you can read on the internet says count as something in that brackets. It doesn't work. So I've written a calculation that looks vaguely like this. I want to filter. You can add the filter at the beginning of the apply. So it's just for the one record. I was like, there's a quick, it's for everything, but I've filtered a record down to this. Then I'm grouping the data I'm returning by both the module and this calculated field. And I want to get back in a select the module and the calculated field. Okay? So that's how to read the query. So I want to group it so that you've got a module and then you've got this calculated field with it. So that returns 5 records. I found it almost impossible to get to the structure that I really wanted to. In the calculated field, I made a list of and then made another field which is make that into an array, and that's just what I return. Okay, that's like not using OData. That's where OData is at the edge of what it can do. And I definitely want to show you this because this is properly brand new. A big credit to Carl at Soliant. We've been working on this together. Webhooks in FileMaker from your tables and fields. It's the mechanism by which Studio talks to FileMaker. On both ends, they're firing off webhooks to notify the other side of changes. It is in the current shipping product. It's not documented until today. And the reason is you might be expecting it relatively soon in the forthcoming weeks. I can't promise anything. And the normal Claris caveat, anything I show you may not actually work when you get hold of it. Okay? There, I am going to demo this. There's a webhook endpoint. So when this happens, or this is true, send that to the webhook. Okay? And it's using the OData queries in what you're doing with the filter and select. And you also get, you will need the table name, and there's a flag field. If you want to get notified when schema changes, your OData account needs to have full access. Again, there may be something also coming about that. A trick to saying, if anything's modified, is if row mod ID is more than 0. When you create a record the first time, it has a modification ID of 0 if you create it transactionally, but the minute you change anything in it, that row mod ID will be more than 0. Okay? So what you need is an endpoint to take the webhook. I created some. Pipedream is amazing. It's like a proper, tell it what you want it to do and it builds a thing for you in front of your eyes. For somebody like me, it's magic. And now I can also announce that brother Todd of this parish, which I will also demonstrate, is including the ability, some abilities around this area. Obviously, if you have auto FMS, and the question is why haven't you, you can receive webhooks into auto FMS anyway. So you need a webhook endpoint, and what I'm about to show you, I'm going to set up a webhook, and what you get back is a numeric ID of that webhook. Okay. The verbs that we're going to look at are get all, get some number, delete some number, and invoke some number. Okay. So that's giving you the background. Okay. So let's go into here. So I did test this a lot. So on a file, here, oh, what's that about? Oh, because I'm still in PowerPoint and I haven't clicked escape. My apologies. Thank you. See that? Because this is important. Let me zoom in a bit. So, OData URL, file name, / webhook dot, and the action. Okay. So I'm going to run that webhook get all. It says webhooks are active and there's an empty array because there are none. Okay. So that's the first thing. That shows it works. So what do we think we want to do? We want to add one. Okay. So that's going to be a post to webhook.add. And the body needs to be this. The webhook, headers, which you can send any headers you like into the webhook, and some of them don't work, by the way. The table name that I want this webhook to sit on. Whether I want to be notified when the schema changes, turn that off for the moment. My select is, I want to get back the row ID, and I have to change this because I know I've changed that to name underscore first, didn't I? And the filter is, that's not true, it's this other file, sorry, I think. I'll check that in FileMaker in a second. And the filter is, well, the filter, this is for demo purposes. So this could be fire off a webhook when the status changes from draft to approved. Okay. When this field contains the word auto, then fire off the webhook. Okay. So this is the file in which this is working. It's based on a tiny bit of customer thing. Here's my auto webhook receiver table, which is kind of in there. Okay. So I said, I'm going to do this, and what we're going to do is we're going to do it on the projects layout. Okay. And there's a field called note, and if I change that to the word auto, what I want to get back is the ID and the name. So I'm going to create this webhook, and I now just get back webhook ID 1. It's done. It's sitting there, it's waiting. So if I now go back and do get all, instead of it being an empty array, I can now see webhook 1 with the details. I would expect that to be the case. So it's giving me what I've asked it to be. Okay. If I do a get, brackets with the number, get 1, I'm getting this. If I do get 2, what do we think is going to happen? Well, yeah, pretty much not, because that webhook hasn't been found. Okay. So it adds them incrementally when you make them. Okay. So I'm going to, let's just watch this file. So I'm going to change this field to auto. So over here, there are currently 59 records. Yeah. So I'm going to change that to auto, get out of it. Right, this is not instant. So you need to... I didn't commit. Oh yeah, well done. Thank you for catching my own idiocy. It's not, right, it happens like now. And as partly it's got to send it, it's got to do something else. There are now 61 records. So it has worked. And what I get in here is a payload which says, it gives me an OData answer. Okay, let me copy and paste that, just put it into something so we can see it. Okay, it gives me back an OData answer with a context, the value that would be an OData query, and it says, I asked it to give me back the row ID and the name, so that's what it's given me back. Okay, so I can't modify that webhook if I decide those were the wrong things. I can delete it and make a new one. I can't modify, there's no way to modify that webhook. Okay, so that's the first thing to understand. But it's really simple to do it. Okay. And the second one, actually, because I did commit it the first time, was that. So if I go to another record, that's got note in there. So I just change that to auto and commit. I'm going to hang on for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Bingo. There's a bit of infrastructure going on there. It's going through auto. That's not slow, but right, works. Thank you very much. I've bashed it quite a lot over the last few weeks, a couple of months to be fair. Works. There's some use cases for it. Syncing your database is not one of them. That's the quickest way to kill the server on which your webhook receiver is working. Okay? Don't even attempt to do that, please, and say that John said I shouldn't do this and shouldn't even try it. Okay? If you come to me and go, I've killed this, the amount of traffic you could generate by doing that in a multi-user system is huge. And if I'm only asking for 2 fields, if you're asking for the whole record, which you can, but I can clearly see that there's an audit log use for this. If this changes to this value, or if this changes at all, log this, because this is so if the HR record changes, log it in an audit log. If the telephone number on the user or the address changes, log it, because somebody is concerned to know. Now, you don't get who did it, you just get this is the data that's been changed. But this is a webhook that it happens to be in the same file. As you know, the webhook could be in a completely different file on a completely different server, so your logging can be somewhere else completely, can't it? Which is what you really want. You don't want to be logging in the solution that you're building. Okay, I've been playing with it. It's clearly not yet in production because it's not like properly live and documented. Okay, but genuinely, it's not far away. I wanted to absolutely show you. World first presentation ever of this feature, and you were here. Okay, thank you. So do we finish at 15:15?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, either I've got a couple of more things to say, or you want to ask me questions. Pick one. Okay, a new thing, which again I want to show you. People at Square Moon have seen this, because I did demo it a few weeks ago for them. When you use OData to upload a file, you can do it from the container object, or you can do it from base 64. When it lands in your FileMaker file, rather unhelpfully, it comes in. Come back here. If I go to record 27, here's an image that I did by creating a record with OData. If I right-click this now, what do we think we're going to see? We're going to see, when we want to go export field contents, it's pink at my end. It's called untitled. Every file till now that you have uploaded into a record, using OData is called untitled. That really may not be quite as helpful as you really think. Okay? And it's also limited to the file types that you can send. You can send some image formats and a PDF. Okay? New in a recent version of FileMaker is the ability, and let's see if this doesn't send my screen pink. Hey, you can see it. That's got a file name in it. Okay? So I'll show you how that's working. You can now, when you say, I want to do this, you've got two extra things that you can add to the JSON that allows you to create the record. Okay? Container field at com.filemaker.odata.filename is the file name that it will be given when it gets there. Okay? So you now have control over the file name at the receiving end. And it also needs to know what's the image type. That image type is obviously like the MIME type. So I was sending base64 encoded PNG, and I wanted to be called that when it gets there. Okay? So that's now available in latest version. So you have kind of fuller control. You can upload other file types. If you try and do an upload of an Excel file, this will complain and it won't work. It'll complain or it won't work, or you'll get an unexpected result. However, I'm going to show you how to do it, because I'm kind. If you upload the base64 as text, it survives being put into a container field even. So here, I think this is going to work. I then have I've done it with a script just to demo that it works. I'm just going base64 decode that and put it into a different container. It's either a docx file or a Excel file. I can't remember what that one is. There you go. I've converted that base64 into the docx file. So that has allowed me to get round that by uploading the base64. Base64 is just a string. Do that, do some other thing. Auto-enter calc. So if you're sending it a file name, you can read the file name and go, oh, this needs to now run this now needs to do this. Okay? Just showing you a few workarounds. Go and work out how you might want to use that. Really useful. And I demoed it. It works with Excel and Word, which are the two most popular, but it works with any other binary format as well that you can upload in that way. So there's a thing in the help that says, oh, now you can field rename. That's exactly what that's about. Okay? So the moving parts are, what's the field, what's the file name, what's the file as base64. So, as I said, we don't really have time to discuss this because I've showed you a bunch of other stuff. Okay, I will spend 2 minutes and no more trying to make this work. Just so that HTTPS. FMI.OData.v/. Also in box. Maybe I should put that. No, I don't need that. Oh, okay. That needs to be slashes, not dots. Basic, John.
Is it the right account? I think in
Yeah, that's my account, which should get in to do everything.
in Postman you were using DAPI account.
Yeah,
Possible?
but that's
Yeah, okay.
that's
Yeah.
my full access.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try and make it work and come and see me after. And once it's working, you'll be amazed. So something really quickly, which isn't on the slide. When you create the webhook, so here's the how to delete it. You post to the delete endpoint with the number. You don't run a delete. You post to the delete endpoint. Steve, I don't know why either. That will delete it. There is a difference between whether you add the .fmp to the file name or not. So I'm using OLG_clockify file. I've added a webhook to that. If I add a webhook, okay, let's do it. We've got 2 minutes, haven't we? Let's add a basic thing. I added this as number 1, and if I do .fmp12 into here, I can add a webhook, and now it's webhook number 4, because apparently there's 3 others on there already. If I do a get all on it without the FMP12, I'm just going to go, that's the one that you just made. If I do it with the .fmp12 in there, I'm now going to get back 3. There is a difference. You have to be really disciplined about whether you put the .fmp12 in or not. Okay, and the final thing, which is brand new, wanted to keep this right till the end. Let's go to here, for those of you who use Otto. Okay? You don't have this yet, but I do. If you go to FileMaker Server, there's going to be a new tab on here for triggers. If I choose that file on which I know there are triggers, there are some triggers set up. So you go, this file, here's my data API key that I'm going to use. I'm going to add a trigger. It gives you a card to do all the things. It's really irritating because you have to get your URL before you get into here because you can't get out to copy it. Put it on put your webhook URL on your clipboard first. Come to here. That gives you a shortcut for how to do what I did, hard-coded in JSON and Postman. And then click Add Trigger. This also gives you the ability to delete them or refresh them. So theoretically, there may be... There's a little bit of a... Because of this .fmp12 thing, there's a little bit of polishing around the edges to do to make sure it can properly refresh all the webhooks that are available. But these webhooks also work. A different set of webhooks, they also work. That's a shortcut to be able to do it. So rather than you having to manually write the Postman queries, there you go. Uncle Todd's going to give you a present quite soon. Okay? And that's like me, fully maxed out with information to blurb at all of you. Thanks for coming. I will answer any questions you've got right now if you want to ask them so everybody else, but equally stay around for, we've got 15, 20 minutes before the final closing session where we all get prizes. So.
Okay, first, thank you, John.
That's a technical question. Yeah. In a former friend of me told me that Doug mentioned that with Server 22, you need to enable client filtering to make the OData work.
If you're talking to Studio.
Just for Studio, because I tried it myself and it worked.
Yeah, so if you want to, in Studio, go, can I have a FileMaker data source? You have to have turned on your server, filter by client, because it doesn't work without that on, which is then irritating because every time you go to that server, you have to put your username and password in. That's a Studio thing. We want them to fix that. Okay. There is something coming with privilege sets, which are also kind of...
Okay, because I tried it in Power BI.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing, like it looks the same like Excel.
Yeah.
And it worked both configurations.
It's not that, because I know that's on that server. I'm desperate to try and make it work for those that want to see it, but sorry that kind of failed. But there was enough to say. Anybody else?
Maybe quick question. Is the webhooks, is it saved on your file or on the server?
I have no idea.
Like if you
it's on the server somehow on one of the objects.
I suppose.
Okay, if you reboot your server, all those webhooks go away.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay.
They're not saved in any way. If you close the file and reopen the file, I think they work. You need to test a bit. Don't close your file. If you reboot the server, they go away. But if they're that simple to recreate, if you've got a script saying, here, I want these 5 webhooks. Okay, didn't show it because it needs full access. If you change the schema, you'll get a webhook fired out when a schema is changed. So if you want to control what your junior developer is doing, it's on a per table basis. It's not a per file basis. But you could set a webhook to say, hey, if somebody changes a schema on this thing, just fire me this off. If I do an action which causes the webhook to fire, but it has no data. Like I delete a record, which I can also. So the other thing that Todd has added to Auto FMS webhooks, so it sends a delete request out and it sends a patch request out. Auto FMS can now receive those webhooks. It could previously only accept posts. A bit of information. But what was I saying? Yeah, you can get back a record that's got an empty value. It doesn't tell you what record it was from. Not very helpful. That's why you can't use it for logging. I just know that an action happened that caused the empty value to be triggered to me. It doesn't tell me which record it is. Not quite as helpful as you might want. But that's not a use case for it, maybe. So, anybody else?
Presumably that saving thing's going to get fixed.
Presumably the saving of webhooks and webhooks going away when the server reboots. Presumably
people may have been asked about that already.
Yeah, it's just a current state of not quite finished.
That's why I say I'm demoing something which it works now. You could go and try that code now on the shipping version of 25, and it will work. Everything else is like under.
Yeah, but maybe if you add them in AutoFMS also restarts if you reboot your server, AutoFMS is also restarted. Maybe he Todd registers them again
locally, where he's also storing other stuff, so he could regenerate them potentially. They're not being saved on the server in any file. Now, I believe they're supposed to be. That's the problem. Okay. I can't tell you or show you, but that needs fixing. But it's not far. But you could go from here, having copied the slides, and make that work on your server to prove that it works. That's the first thing. But we're not far away from something else happening when it's going to be made public. You're the first people who are the public.
So since they're never stored in any file, what happens if the server runs out of RAM and has to evict some of its memory to disk?
Again,
I also dropping webhooks?
I can't answer that question because I've never even tried to do that right now, and I have never got to that point where that's the case. I'm imagining it's somewhere on the server object or on the file object that the server is serving. I don't know the technicalities at the moment because that hasn't been released to us and nobody's answered my questions either. All the thing is, here's the thing and this is how it works. Yes, that's a great question because I don't know what are the conditions under which it doesn't work yet.
I'm just wondering about the .fmp thing where it kind of seems to be, is it scoped to the URL? The webhooks, does it seem like that? Or?
Apparently, according to Uncle Todd, the same things happen with data API requests.
Right.
If you make a data API request and you do include the .fmp12 and you don't, they're different. They're different requests.
I wonder if you had two domains pointing to the same server, would the different domain do it? Or even if it's case sensitive, if you had a capital FMP, would it scope it to that?
I mean, we're at the experimental stage, blah, blah, blah. We just know that if you do include it and you don't include it, they're seen as two different webhooks on a different object internally in the server. They'll both fire, but it does mean if you do a get all, you might not see everything that's there. Okay?
Okay, thanks, John.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.